Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another video. So I'm just coming from Dubai Marina from a developer's office, checking out some new projects. And I stopped at the Dubai Marina Mall to pray, right? And in the prayer rooms at the mall, and even in the masajid, but mostly at the malls, you have prayer garments on the cubicles for women who want to cover themselves and pray, because the Muslims know that it's some people who don't cover correctly and it's some that don't cover at all. And the first time I actually saw that was when I was in Egypt. And coming from America, being someone who enters into Islam, and the covering being basically your identity. You are automatically identified as a Muslim as soon as you
600 meters, keep left to stay on
start.
Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Road, E311.
As soon as you start to cover, excuse me, yo. As soon as you start to cover, you're automatically identified as a Muslim. But of course, I told y'all before, overseas, that doesn't mean anything. They need to know what your belief is. What are you? Being covered is not enough. So they will ask
to
you.
stay on Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Road.
The Muslims will ask you, what are you? Because like I told y'all, they have Christians and Jews, well, mainly Jews, that will cover like us. So you can't really go off of dress. Anyway, back to the uncover and then cover to pray. So in America, many of us who start to cover and start to pray, we get judgmental because you don't know any better. You judge a person based off of their appearance. If they're covered, that means they're practicing, and that's not always true. And if they're uncovered, that means they're not practicing. And that's also not always true. But you have to learn that over time. You just assume that a person doesn't pray because they don't cover. But that's projection for people who only have Islam in their garments, and then when their garments come off, they go back to behaving like the non-Muslim. So that's prevalent amongst converted people who didn't grow up with Islam, and it's not in their hearts like that. It's just in their clothing. So you project. You these clothes is what keeps us straight. These clothing is what keeps us praying or mindful of Allah. But once the clothing comes off, we assimilate and blend in with everyone else, and you no longer act like a Muslim. Excuse me, y'all. So once I got to Egypt, and I was in the mall, in the musalla, praying, and I saw women coming in completely uncovered, put on a garment, pray, take it back off to leave out. I was flabbergasted. I didn't even think that was a thing. I was like, what? Oh, wow, subhanAllah, they actually still pray, even though they're not covered. So that was the first wake-up call for me to understand that Islam, of course, is obligatory for a woman to cover herself. But if a person doesn't cover, you can't assume all the worst about them. So that was my first wake-up call. And being in that musalla just reminded me of that. And I was like, subhanAllah, how warped your mind is, being in a society where being half naked is the norm, and religion is reduced to clothing and has nothing to do with your insiders. People put on costumes, basically, and then when a costume comes off, they're back to their normal selves, sadly. But people born in Muslim countries, they're surrounded by Islam, even though they, are afflicted with the idea that they don't have to cover, or, you know, maybe I'll cover when I get married if my husband asks me, or whatever has entered into their minds to make them take off their hijab like that. Islam is still in them. So Islam has to be inside of you, like digested inside of you, a part of your insides, a part of your skin, and not just
600 meters,
on you.
keep left to stay on Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Road, E300.
Thought I closed it. And not just this thing is acting up, and not just on you, right? That was something. And another thing that also helped me to stop being so judgmental was the fact that rap music had reached the Middle East. And I heard stories about from the that the students, when they would be in Medina, they would hear Biggie Smalls, a rapper called Biggie Smalls. For some of you who are not familiar with rap, and those of you who are, you already know, and other rap songs that they would hear in Medina. And I was like, wow, okay, so if they can be affected in listening to this stuff in a Muslim country, or whatever other effects comes from that in a Muslim country, how much more so the people that are from the culture, that are in it? How you gotta have mercy. You have to not be so hard on people. Give them hope, give them advice, and then step back. Make dua for them and step back, because that's a battle. If that music can reach other lands and affect people who are not even from the culture, how much more so those people who are trying to practice Islam and they're fighting, they're right in the mix. They still have relatives that are calling them to that culture, or colleagues at work. It's just, you can't escape it. So may Allah bless all of those Muslims in the West who are striving and trying to keep it together. But at the same time, we need to be merciful to the ones who get caught up and they fall short and they get called back to the craziness, or those who are born Muslim in the West and they get caught up because they're part of the culture as well. At that point, raised their peer pressure, influence. It's a tough road. It's tough, but yeah, that musalla and praying in there reminded me. Seeing those women come in from work just to pray and then take their stuff off, I was like, subhanallah. May Allah make it easy for all, and may Allah help us and increase us in knowledge, increase us in strength, and in obedience to Him. And for those women who cover, may Allah reward you. The ones who stay covered, may Allah put it in your scales of good deeds and reward you tremendously and grant you Judgemental for those for covering yourself, especially in these times where it's so normal for people to take off their hijab. The women get tricked. So all the women who they fear Allah and they cover themselves, bravo. Bravo to you. Alright, y'all, I am signing off. I'm heading back to Edgeman, and inshallah we'll see you all in the next video. Don't forget that Hijra mandate sacrifice. Ma'as salama.